Hey, good morning guys. Today's video I wanted to talk about the 2020 Chicago Marathon, and the reason why I wanted to cover this topic is because I've ran the race myself in 2007. It is a very fast course, but I also wanted to talk about some specific fundamentals and principles that you can follow this year leading into that race so you can get a new personal best. And I think it's very important that as I talk about training and preparing for races and your mentality leading into your big races, I think it's also very important to bring up the fact that I didn't just get to a point where I could break a 2 hour and 20-minute marathon overnight. It wasn't, I experienced failures and setbacks just like you and any other athlete. So I think it's really critical that I bring up the fact that I too failed many times in the marathon distance. I also failed miserably in 2007, the last time I ran the Chicago Marathon. I was a part of the U.S. Army World Class Athlete Program in 2007 when I ran that race, and the reason why I went to compete in the Chicago Marathon in 2007 was it was my last opportunity to qualify for the Olympic trials in 2007, which the Olympic trials in 2008 USA Olympic trials were held in November of 2007 in New York City. It was the worst weather conditions in the history of the race in Chicago that year. I'm a cold weather runner, so I want to also talk on this in terms of helping you in regards to providing some tips to you in regards to that. If you are a cold weather runner and you're dealing with a race like the 2007 Chicago Marathon, where it was the worst heat, the worst temperatures in the history of the race, so significantly adjust your pacing. So that's my first tip in regards to you preparing for the 2020 Chicago Marathon, is to adjust your pace if the temperatures are really hot this year. So I think it's really critical too that you adjust your pacing and find what works for you early on in the race. You know, in 2007 it was about 75 to 78 degrees at the start of the race. The U.S. Army had flew me out to Chicago to compete in that race. My experience with that race, I hit the half in an hour and 11 minutes, and I wanted to drop out at that point. I mean, if I had not been funded to go out to that race, I probably would not have finished that race that particular day. I mean, it was really bad. And I ended up running 2 hours, 51 minutes, and 56 seconds. So going from a 1:11 the first half and then to a 1:40 the second half, you can get an idea of how bad that last 13 miles was for me. I was walking and jogging the entire way. Most important thing as you lead into the 2020 Chicago Marathon, you know, it's early, it's only February, so you have plenty of time. Just prepare yourself if the conditions are, if it's hot, adjust your pace, make sure you are hydrating in the race. That was another thing I was not doing enough of years ago, was not taking in enough fluid and not enough calories. If it is hot out, you're going to be sweating more. Your body's going to your body will desperately need those extra calories and that fluid intake. So you cannot skimp on that area. Make sure you do not neglect that. It wasn't all sunshine and great races and personal best for me. You know, for me, I had to fail several times before I was able to run 2:19 for the marathon and nearly break 1:07 for the half. I had a lot of ebbs and flows just like you and any other athlete, but you have to maintain your enthusiasm for what you're doing. So that's another tip I want to share with you as you're leading into the 2020 Chicago Marathon, is maintain your enthusiasm. Know that what you're doing takes and involves a great deal of work and focus and attention on your part. So just keep it fun. Make sure that you're going out, you're putting in the work, but at the same time, you're still having a good time, enjoying yourself, knowing that you're out there, you're fit, you're able to compete, you're able to train and prepare for these races. There's a lot of athletes out there, a lot of people that'll never run and do what you're willing to do. So make sure you maintain your enthusiasm, expect the challenges, know that there's going to be ups and downs preparing for the Chicago Marathon. It's one of the greatest marathons in the world, I can tell you. It's super flat. That being said, know that there is no such thing as a flat course or a fast course without you being prepared and being fast yourself. a fast course like Chicago or Rotterdam or Paris or Columbus, any flat course around the world is not fast. It's fast if you're fast. It's fast if you've prepared correctly for the race. So just keep that in mind. Number 2 tip: work on your speed. Continue to work on your speed. It doesn't matter if you're a marathoner or not, or a sprinter. We all, as athletes, as endurance athletes, in my case, I was always working on my overall leg speed. I knew that, in high school, I had my personal best for 400 meters was 53.5, so I had limited overall leg speed. So even as I transitioned into the longer distances, like the marathon, I was always working on leg speed. So get out on the track, do those VO2 max workouts that we talk about, and if you haven't yet, watch those VO2 max and lactate tolerance videos I've created here. Go back and watch some of those. I'll leave those in the description below. If you're brand new to the channel, my name is Nate Pennington. I'm the founder of RunDreamAchieve.com. I've been competing for 28 years, 219 marathoner, former member of the U.S. Army World Class Athlete Program. I welcome you to the channel. If you haven't yet subscribed, click on the subscribe button and the bell icon so when I make new videos, you'll be notified of it. I welcome you. Appreciate you stopping by and stopping in to hear what I have to say. The number 3 tip I want to share in regards to you preparing for the Chicago Marathon is to train on the hills. Yes, it's a flat course, but your competition may specifically be focused on training just on the flats because they know it's a flat course. But one thing you can do to one-up them is to train on hills. Get used to going up and down and getting used to varying the paces. It's going to make you so much more well prepared for racing over a flat course if you've trained on the hill. Training on the hills is much more anaerobic. You're varying up your paces. So once you get to the race and you know where you're going to be competing on a flat course, it's going to make you all that more well prepared and anaerobically fit to race over a flat distance. The next tip I wanted to share is to run as fast as you can over the 5K to half marathon distances. The faster you can get at those particular distances where you're working more on your leg speed and more on anaerobic type races, the faster you're going to be over the marathon distance. The month before the 2007 Chicago Marathon, now reminder to you, I ran 2 hours, 51 minutes, and 56 seconds. I went out in 1:11, came back in a 1:40. It was an awful race, huge learning experience for me. But the month before that, I ran a personal best for 10 miles and the half marathon. I hit the 10-mile mark in my half marathon PR in 50:54. and ended up running 1 hour, 7 minutes, 6 seconds at the 2007 Rock and Roll Philadelphia half marathon. So I knew I was ready leading into the Chicago Marathon. It's just you got to expect that some days are not going to be perfect. You know, if you fail at the Chicago Marathon or any other race leading into it, continue to stay focused. You know, after Chicago, I took my licks at that race. It sucked, especially in that last half. But I took 3 days off, started training 3 days after the race, and less than 3 months after the 2007 Chicago Marathon, I ended up running 2:19:35 in Sacramento. It was 42 degrees in Sacramento. It was chilly. The competition was great. The course itself was not in California at the California International Marathon. It's not a flat course. It's a net downhill course, sort of like Boston, but not as much of a net downhill course as Boston. But the temperatures were perfect for me. I was well prepared, just as I was in Chicago. But the temperatures for me personally, I'm a cold weather runner. It was about close to 80 degrees at the start of the 2007 Chicago Marathon, and I was done. So just again, make sure you are adjusting your pace if it's a hot if the start of the 2020 Chicago Marathon is super hot and you already know you're a cold weather runner, make sure you back off that pace. But the faster you can get at those shorter distances, the better, because you know you're even more well prepared to handle the entire distance of the marathon. The next tip I want to share is to find a group that's going after a time that you're trying to shoot for at the 2020 Chicago Marathon. If your goal is to break 3 hours for the marathon, you need to hold 6:52 pace for 26.2 miles. Find some people around you that are kind of going for that 2:59. If you're trying to break 5 hours, you know you have to run around 10:18 per mile pace. So find some other athletes that prior to the start of the race or the morning of the race that are trying to go under that sub 5 hour marathon. I think that will really help you in terms of, you know, having that camaraderie around you in the race and just kind of feeding off each other, and not going out too fast, but knowing that you're running with a group that's going for a similar type of time, and not running with a group that's going, you know, for a time that's 30 minutes faster than you're aiming for. So it'll keep you from, one, going out too fast, and two, it'll keep you confident that you're maintaining the pace. So that's really critical too. Another tip I want to share is just to get mentally prepared. Know that, you know, I'm a big believer in visualization. I believe that whatever you're seeking to do in the marathon distance or any other distance, you have to see it in the mind first. You know, the great Billy Mills said it perfectly. He said the subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between reality and imagination. And when I was a 2:43 marathoner in 2007, I knew when I first got to the U.S. Army World Class Athlete Program as a conditional athlete, I had run 51:53 for 10 miles. I'd made a World Armed Forces cross-country team, but the fastest I put up for the marathon was 2 hours, 43 minutes, and 36 seconds in my debut, which was the 2002 New York City Marathon. We were part of an Armed Forces charity team where we weren't allowed to start until every runner had crossed the start line. So I started in 32,189th place, and for every athlete that I passed, Chase Manhattan Bank was going to donate $1 to lung cancer research. So went from dead last to 256th place overall with 2 hours 43:36. So in that time from 2002 to 2007, I had a lot of ebbs and flows, a lot of failures. All you need to do is go to RunDreamAchieve.com, click on About, and you'll see all of my race history. You'll see the ups and downs. You'll see the personal best. You'll see the not too great of a time. You'll see the ebbs and flows of my own training. So it's important that I also share my failures with you and anybody that comes to the Run Dream Achieve YouTube channel or visits RunDreamAchieve.com to realize that I'm not just a 2:19 marathoner. I'm an athlete that experienced failures and ups and downs just like you and anybody whether you're a sprinter or you're an endurance athlete. And find that group that you want to compete with in the race, and that'll really go with you a long way. Get mentally prepared. Visualize yourself doing what you seek out, what you really want to do. I visualized myself breaking 2 hours and 22 minutes several times in 2007. It was I'd spend between 15 and 20 minutes every single day, just, you know, with the lights off, just visualize myself getting across the finish line with a 2 hour, 21 minute, 59 second time on the clock. And I know that mental toughness coupled with proper preparation, proper anaerobic workouts where you're doing, you know, VO2 max type training where you're training at closer to 100% of your maximum heart rate will prepare you to be able to sustain that pace that you're trying to sustain for the entire duration and not just a portion of the race. You got to see it in your mind first before it ever becomes a reality in real life. So definitely take the time, prepare yourself, whatever goal time you're trying to go for at the 2020 Chicago Marathon. Make sure you see yourself and believe that what you're practicing and what you're visualizing, believe it in your heart that you will do it, and you will do it. You know, you cannot just sit on a couch and do nothing and watch television and visualize yourself running a specific time. Okay, so I don't want to say just mental training is going to get it for you. It's not. You can wear performance-enhancing shoes like the Nike Vaporfly or Alphafly or any of these other shoes. They're not going to get the job done either if you're not putting in the work. So make sure you are training well, you're preparing, and you're training well below your goal marathon race pace, but also visualizing yourself seeing and doing what you really truly want to achieve in this marathon. Next tip I want to share with you is train below goal marathon race pace and train often at this pace. If 95% of your weekly volume is spent at 1 minute to 2 minutes above your goal marathon race pace, it's going to be very difficult for you to race and sustain that goal race pace you're aiming for over 26.2 miles. You have to spend time training, you know, about 1 minute to even 2 minutes faster than your goal race pace. Granted, we can't spend a lot of time training at 2 minutes faster than our race pace, but you can spend some time on the track doing those VO2 max workouts where you're doing repeat 200s, repeat 400s, repeat 800s, at speeds that are way faster than you're trying to race at. So make sure you are taking the time to train below race pace. This will improve your body's lactate tolerance. And again, what you want to do is you want to teach the body to burn fat at race pace and conserve carbohydrate. You know, our bodies only have about 1,800 calories worth of glycogen stored at any given time. And the majority of athletes in the marathon distance usually hit the so-called wall at around mile 18. We burn about 100 calories per mile. So normally, if you have not done your homework in training in terms of training below your goal race pace, you've not done the VO2 max workouts, you haven't done longer tempo run, you want to extend the amount of time you're training at your anaerobic threshold, which if you're wearing a heart rate monitor, it's about 164 to 174 beats per minute, depending on your age. And you want to go from early on in your fitness doing like between a 2 and 3 mile tempo run, and you want to extend that out. If you're doing training for the 2020 Chicago Marathon, I highly recommend training for 16 weeks or 4 months. If you go to RunDreamAchieve.com, I have courses that are specifically built for athletes trying to break the 4-hour marathon, the 3-hour marathon, and the 2-hour 30-minute marathon barrier. So go to RunDreamAchieve.com, click on courses, or you can just review the information listed here on the video. But those particular courses, along with the training programs that I've built, are specifically built so you know what you need to be doing on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis leading into the 2020 Chicago Marathon. You want to extend the amount of time you're training at your anaerobic threshold because you want to improve your body's lactate tolerance. You want to be able to sustain pace, burn fat at race pace, and conserve those carbohydrates that you need in the last 10K rather than running out of glycogen storage, you know, at like mile 16 and 17 and hitting the wall and then jogging or walking the last, you know, few miles of the race. So I really want to emphasize that part as you train for the Chicago Marathon. Again, it's only February. We've got plenty of time. The race isn't until October, but I want you to think over these fundamentals, these principles as you lead into your Chicago Marathon. Make sure that you are working on your overall leg speed. Jump in some 5Ks, jump in some 10Ks, half marathons. Get those races as fast as you possibly can. Try to improve your personal best in those events as well. The faster you can get at those, especially the 10 mile to half marathon distance, 10K to half marathon distance, the stronger you're going to be for the marathon. And I think that's really critical as you lead into Chicago. Maintain your enthusiasm, have a good time out there, train with a group, also train by yourself. There were a lot of times when I was preparing to break 2 hours and 22 minutes, where I was out there doing repeat 2 miles on the track at altitude in Colorado Springs, and I'm out there doing 3 by 2 miles at sub 10 minutes per 2 mile by myself. I didn't have a large group of Kenyan-born soldier athletes that are currently at the Army WCAP program. When I first got to the World Class Athlete program in Fort Carson in 2007, I was the only marathoner in Colorado Springs. And the only other marathoner in the program was Dan Brown, who was a 2:11:35 marathoner, and he trained and lived out in Oregon. So I didn't have the luxury of having a Dan Brown to train with. Dan and I are good friends, and I've trained with him on the track and done some workouts with him. He's a 2-time Olympian. Definitely taught me a lot of strategies to get to the next level in the marathon. But sometimes you're not going to have those athletes around you, and you're going to have to put in the heavy work on your own. And again, it goes back to that mental toughness. You've got to be able to sustain your effort over a long period of time by yourself sometimes. It's a lot easier to train with a group or to train with one other athlete who's better than you or just as good as you. It's a whole other ballgame when you're by yourself. So, but do that. Get out of your comfort zone and expect the challenges. Be ready for those challenges, and I guarantee you'll go into the 2020 Chicago Marathon in great shape. And one last tip I want to share with you is make sure you do a 10-day taper. Get away from doing a 3-week taper. If you've never tried it, a lot of times, every PR that I've ever set, it's always been from a 10-day taper. I've always felt that when I started dropping my mileage in intensity 3 weeks out, I started to feel lethargic, and flat. So try giving a 10-day taper a try and see how that feels as you lead into the Chicago Marathon in October. I think you'll definitely get some great results from that, and I look forward to hearing from you. And let me know how it goes. Let me know how your training leading up to the Chicago Marathon is going so far, if you have that as your goal. Leave me a comment below in the comment section and let me know what your thoughts are in regards to the marathon itself, what's a specific problem that you're having, and what maybe something in this video I haven't covered that you want me to go into a little bit more specifics. I appreciate you watching this video, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video.